Hey guys, welcome to RedSunStories. Hope you're doing well. Tonight, discover why the Japanese say the foxes are marrying when rain falls from cloudless sky. Let this ancient legend of supernatural weddings and mysterious lights guide you into deep sleep. But before you get comfortable, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe if you enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments what time it is for you. I would love to connect with you guys. Now, let's dive into tonight's story together. The rain began at noon, though not a single cloud marred the summer sky. Yuki stood in her grandmother's garden, cucumber forgotten in her small hand, watching droplets fall through brilliant sunshine. Each drop became a tiny prism, scattering rainbows across her outstretched palm. The air smelled of wet earth and wildflowers, impossibly fresh, impossibly strange. The warmth of the sun pressed against her shoulders, while cool rain kissed her cheeks. Two sensations that should never exist together, yet here they danced in perfect contradiction. "Grandmother," she whispered, turning toward the old woman who smiled knowingly from the doorway. "Why does the rain fall when there are no clouds?" Her grandmother's eyes held distant memories, reflections of 100 summers past. "The foxes are marrying today, child. Kitsune no Yomeiri, the fox's wedding. They make the rain to hide their ceremony from mortal eyes." Yuki's breath caught with wonder. She had heard whispers of such magic, village children speaking in hushed tones of lights that danced across distant mountains, of processions no human should witness, of the thin places where the spirit world pressed close against their own. But to experience it, to stand beneath impossible rain while sunshine blazed, this was different. This was real. "Will we see them?" she asked, voice barely audible over the gentle patter of rain on leaves. "Perhaps," grandmother replied, her weathered face serene. "When evening falls and this strange rain continues, watch the mountain path where no road exists. Watch for lights. If the foxes are generous, if they wish to be seen, their lanterns will appear. Dozens of them, a procession moving in perfect formation, accompanied by music no human instrument could make." The afternoon stretched long and luminous. The sunshower continued its impossible dance, rain falling in steady rhythm while the sun traced its arc across cloudless blue. Yuki could not look away from the sky, from the contradiction that sparkled and fell. Somewhere in the forest, she knew, preparations were being made. Somewhere beyond human sight, a bride was preparing to travel to her new home. Somewhere in the realm of spirits and shapeshifters, love was being celebrated with ancient ceremony. As twilight approached, painting the world in shades of amber and violet, the rain intensified slightly, and Yuki saw it, a single light on the mountain path where no path should be, then another and another. They emerged from the forest like stars being born, forming a line that stretched and curved, following terrain only they could see. The procession of the foxes had begun. "There!" grandmother breathed, standing beside Yuki now, both of them transfixed by the impossible beauty unfolding across the darkening mountain. "The Kitsune bring their bride home. We are witnessing what few humans ever see. The wedding of the magical foxes, the ceremony that happens in the space between rain and sunshine, between our world and theirs." The lights moved with purpose, with solemnity, each one casting a soft glow that seemed to exist outside ordinary illumination. They did not flicker like torches or burn steady like lanterns. They pulsed gently, as if breathing, as if alive. Yuki counted 20, 30, 50 lights, each one carried by an invisible bearer, each one marking the path of an ancient tradition that predated human memory. "Why do they let us see?" Yuki whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly might shatter the spell. "Because today is auspicious," grandmother replied softly. "A fox wedding brings blessings, good harvests, safe journeys, children for newlywed couples. The more lanterns we see, the more abundant the autumn harvest will be. The foxes share their joy with us, in their way. We are lucky to witness this, Yuki. Very lucky indeed." The procession wound across the mountain for what seemed like hours, a river of light flowing through darkness, carrying its precious cargo. A bride traveling to meet her destiny, a family celebrating the joining of two lives, a community of spirits marking the eternal cycle of love and new beginnings. And still, the rain fell through the last rays of sunlight, creating a curtain between worlds, a boundary that could be crossed only in moments like these, when magic decided to reveal itself to those patient enough, humble enough, to simply watch and wonder. In a realm that existed alongside the human world, yet separate from it, where the forests grew deeper and the seasons turned according to older calendars, there lived a young white fox named Fukuyemon. He had recently come of age, marked by the traditional shaving of his forelock, a ceremony that signaled his transition from youth to adulthood, his readiness to take his place in fox society and carry forward his family's name. The morning of his coming-of-age ceremony, Fukuyemon stood before a still pond, studying his reflection with a mixture of pride and nervousness. His fur was pure white, gleaming like fresh snow, marking him as one of the divine foxes, blessed by Inari, different from the common red foxes who inhabited the lower forests. White foxes were special, his father had always told him, messengers of the rice god, bringers of prosperity, guardians of thresholds between the human and spirit realms. "You have grown well, my son," his father said, approaching through the morning mist. The elder fox's own white coat had begun to show touches of silver, particularly around his muzzle, evidence of a long life lived with honor and success. "Today, I pass my business to you, as my father passed it to me, as his father passed it to him before. Take what I have built and make it prosper further. Work with diligence and honor, and the blessings of Inari will follow you all your days." Fukuyemon bowed deeply, overcome with gratitude and the weight of responsibility. The family business, trading in rice and sake between the spirit, merchants of the deep forest and those who lived closer to human settlements, required skill, trustworthiness, and the kind of reputation that took generations to build. His father was retiring, stepping back into private life, confident that his son could carry the legacy forward. "I will honor you, father," Fukuyemon pledged, his voice steady despite the tumult of emotions within. "I will work hard and earnestly to increase our family's fortune." The transfer ceremony was conducted with all proper formality, witnessed by elders of the fox community and blessed by prayers offered at the nearest Inari shrine. Fukuyemon accepted the ceremonial weights and measures, the account books kept in his father's careful characters, the tokens that represented agreements and partnerships stretching back decades. He was now the head of his household, a respected merchant in his own right. But as the days turned to weeks and weeks to months, as Fukuyemon threw himself into his work with admirable dedication, learning the nuances of trade and negotiation, building upon his father's foundation with fresh energy and innovative ideas, a different kind of longing began to grow in his heart. The business was important, yes, but it felt incomplete somehow. The house, though comfortable and well-appointed, echoed with emptiness when he returned each evening. He wanted what his parents had shared: partnership, companionship, the warmth of family. He wanted to hear laughter in the rooms, to share the day's triumphs and troubles with someone who understood, to build not just a business legacy, but a family one. He realized with sudden clarity one autumn evening as he watched geese fly south in perfect formation, a wife. "You are thinking of marriage," his father observed one night, reading his son's distracted expression with parental accuracy. Fukuyemon startled slightly, then smiled ruefully. "Is it so obvious? You have the look of a fox whose den feels too empty," his father said, settling comfortably on the cushions beside the hearth. "I remember that feeling well before I met your mother. The business prospered, yes, but prosperity alone does not warm a winter night or give life meaning beyond the accumulation of wealth." "I want what you and mother have," Fukuyemon admitted. "A partnership built on respect and affection, a family to come home to." His father nodded thoughtfully, whiskers twitching in the way that meant he was already planning, already thinking through the networks and connections their family had cultivated over generations. "There is," he said slowly, "a lady fox I have heard spoken of with great admiration. She comes from one of the oldest, most famous families in the eastern mountains, a lineage that traces back to the founding of the great Inari shrines. They say her fur has the luster of moonlight on water, that her intelligence matches her beauty, that she carries herself with grace befitting her distinguished ancestry." Fukuyemon's ears perked forward with interest. Would her family consider a match with ours? We are white foxes, divine messengers, with our own respected lineage and successful business," his father replied. "Your conduct has been exemplary, your reputation unblemished, your prospects excellent. Yes, I believe her family would consider it. If you wish, I can approach them through proper channels, engage an intermediary to make discreet inquiries, arrange a meeting." "Yes," Fukuyemon said, his heart suddenly racing with a mixture of hope and anxiety. "Yes, please, father. I would very much like to meet her." The wheels of tradition began to turn, as they had turned for countless generations. An intermediary was selected, a respected elderly vixen known for her diplomatic skills and extensive connections among the fox families. Messages were sent, carefully worded to convey serious interest while maintaining appropriate formality. The lady fox's family, it turned out, was indeed open to considering suitors for their daughter. Fukuyemon's credentials were examined, his family's reputation investigated, his character inquired after from those who knew him. Word came back through the intermediary. The lady's family found the proposal intriguing and would agree to a formal meeting. Fukuyemon could scarcely contain his excitement and nervousness as the day approached. He groomed his white fur until it gleamed like pearl, practiced his bows and formal speeches, reviewed everything he knew about proper courtship etiquette. The meeting took place at a neutral location, a pavilion in a forest clearing known for its beauty, where cherry trees bloomed even out of season through some blessing of the spirits, their petals drifting down like pink snow. Fukuyemon arrived early, accompanied by his father and the intermediary, his heart hammering so loudly he was certain everyone could hear it. And then she appeared. The stories had not exaggerated. Her fur did indeed possess a lustrous quality, silvery white with undertones that seemed to shift between cream and pearl, depending on how the light touched her. She moved with unconscious grace, her bearing reflecting generations of careful breeding and education. But it was her eyes that captured Fukuyemon most. Intelligent, alert, kind, with a hint of humor dancing in their depths. She was accompanied by her parents, dignified foxes whose own coats bore the silver touch of age and wisdom, and they regarded Fukuyemon with appraising but not unkind gazes. The introductions were made with all proper formality, each party reciting their lineage and credentials, acknowledging the honor of the meeting. "Lady Yukimura," Fukuyemon said, when it was his turn to speak directly to her, "I am honored beyond measure that you and your family have agreed to meet with me." "The honor is mutual, Fukuyemon-san," she replied, her voice melodious and assured. "Your family's reputation for integrity and diligence is well known even in our remote mountains." They talked then, carefully at first, mindful of the formalities and the watching parents, but gradually with growing ease. They discussed the changing seasons, the traditions of their respective regions, the blessings of Inari, the importance of family. They discovered shared values, compatible temperaments, a mutual respect that needed no artifice. When cherry blossoms drifted between them, caught on a gentle breeze, they both reached out simultaneously to catch the same petal, their paws nearly touching. They pulled back, startled, then laughed at their own self-consciousness. In that moment of shared laughter, something shifted, something clicked into place. "I find no fault," Lady Yukimura's father said to her mother in a voice pitched to be overheard, "in young Fukuyemon's character or prospects." "Nor I," his wife agreed. "He seems a worthy match for our daughter." "The families appear well suited," Fukuyemon's father added. "Both rooted in tradition, both blessed by Inari, both committed to honor and prosperity." The young foxes exchanged glances, hope blooming between them like the impossible cherry blossoms overhead. When the meeting concluded, both parties agreed to move forward with wedding preparations. The intermediary would coordinate the formal gift exchanges, the settlement of arrangements, the setting of an auspicious date. Fukuyemon walked home through the twilight forest, feeling as though his paws barely touched the ground. He replayed every word of the meeting, every glance, every shared smile. He had met her for only a few hours, yet already he could imagine a future together, building their life, raising cubs, growing old side by side as his parents had done. The wedding preparations began in earnest. Following tradition that stretched back centuries, Fukuyemon prepared gifts for his bride's family, fine rice from the best harvests, sake brewed by master craftsmen, silk that had been blessed at Inari shrines, pearls harvested from mountain streams where water spirits dwelled. Each gift was carefully selected to demonstrate respect for the lady's family and to show his capability as a provider. The intermediary delivered these gifts with great ceremony, reciting formal speeches that acknowledged the honor of the union and the hopes for prosperity and happiness. Lady Yukimura's family, in turn, sent acknowledgments and their own gifts in return, each exchange strengthening the bonds being forged. The messengers who carried these treasures back and forth received the customary fees in copper cash as tradition demanded. Fukuyemon threw himself into final preparations for the wedding with joyful energy. He expanded and refurbished his home, creating spaces suitable for a wife and future family. He ensured his business affairs were in impeccable order, that his household could demonstrate the prosperity and stability his bride deserved. He visited the local Inari shrine daily, offering prayers of gratitude for this blessing and asking for guidance to be a good husband. Meanwhile, in the eastern mountains, Lady Yukimura was undergoing her own preparations. Her mother and aunts instructed her in the final mysteries of running a household, in the duties and privileges of a wife, in the sacred responsibilities of continuing the family line. Her wedding robes were prepared, layers of silk in white and red, colors of purity and celebration, embroidered with foxes and autumn grasses, and the sacred symbols of Inari. As the wedding day approached, the forest itself seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. The spirits whispered among themselves about the upcoming ceremony. The trees leaned closer, eager to witness the joining of two distinguished fox families. And in the sky, subtle changes began. Clouds that formed and dissolved without visible cause. Winds that carried the scent of rain though no storm threatened. A quality to the light that seemed poised between states, ready to transform into something extraordinary. The white fox Fukuyemon stood at the threshold of his new life, looking toward the mountains where his bride prepared to journey to him, and felt the weight and wonder of the ancient traditions that bound them. Soon, very soon, she would be his wife. Soon they would begin the adventure of building a family together. Soon the procession would begin, and with it, the magic that marked such unions as special, as blessed, as something that even the heavens acknowledged with their own celebration. The foxes were about to marry, and the world would know it. The rain would fall, the sun would shine, and between those impossibilities, love would be celebrated. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, the sky an endless expanse of summer blue. Fukuyemon rose early, his nerves singing with anticipation and joy. Today, after all the preparations and ceremonies, all the careful observances of tradition, his bride would finally come home. His father helped him dress in formal attire befitting a fox of his station. Layers of silk that whispered with each movement, colors that denoted his divine white fox status and his role as bridegroom. "Your mother would be so proud," the elder fox said softly, adjusting his son's collar with gentle paws. "She always hoped to see you wed, to welcome a daughter to our family." "I wish she could be here," Fukuyemon replied, touching the small charm he wore, one of his mother's possessions, carried now as a blessing. "She is here," his father assured him. "The spirits of our ancestors attend all important family moments. She watches and rejoices with us." In the eastern mountains, Lady Yukimura was undergoing her own transformation from maiden to bride. Her mother and aunts surrounded her, draping her in layers of ceremonial silk, arranging her fur, adorning her with the traditional white tsuno kakushi, the bridal hood that symbolized her commitment to hide the horns of jealousy and ego, to enter marriage with humility and grace. "You will be happy," her mother whispered, embracing her daughter one last time in their ancestral home. "Fukuyemon is a good fox from a good family. You will build a beautiful life together." "I'm nervous," Lady Yukimura admitted, her voice muffled against her mother's shoulder. "That is natural. But look at you. You are radiant, my daughter. You carry our family's grace and wisdom into a new household, creating new bonds, new possibilities. This is a day of joy, not fear." As noon approached, Fukuyemon stood before his home, which had been decorated with paper lanterns and sacred ropes, marked as a place of celebration. The community of foxes had gathered, neighbors, business associates, family friends, all dressed in their finest, all eager to witness the ceremony and share in the happiness. And then, at precisely noon, something extraordinary happened. The first drops of rain began to fall, but the sky remained perfectly, impossibly blue. Not a single cloud marred the azure expanse. The sun blazed in full glory, its light undiminished, its warmth pouring down upon the gathered foxes. Yet rain fell, gentle, steady, impossible rain. A collective gasp rose from the assembled guests. This was Kitsune no Yomeiri, the fox's wedding rain, the phenomenon that marked the most blessed and auspicious unions. The spirits themselves were celebrating. the boundary between worlds growing thin enough for magic to spill through. "The bride brings blessing with her," someone murmured. "The heavens approve this union," another said. "Good fortune will follow them all their days," a third agreed. Fukuyamon stood transfixed, his white fur darkening with rain while sunshine warmed his back, experiencing the strange contradiction that gave the phenomenon its name. He had heard of Kitsune no Yomeiri all his life, but to experience it, to have it manifest on his own wedding day, this was a blessing beyond measure. The procession appeared on the mountain path. Lanterns bobbed through the rain-sparkled air, dozens of them, carried by members of Lady Yukimura's family and community. The lights glowed with foxfire, not ordinary flame, but the mystical luminescence that only fox spirits could create, pale and otherworldly, visible even in bright daylight. Music drifted through the rain, flutes and drums playing melodies that seemed to exist outside the normal range of sound, harmonies that resonated in the chest and heart rather than merely the ears. The procession moved with solemn grace, winding down from the mountains, following paths that existed only for foxes, crossing boundaries that human eyes could never perceive. And in the center of the procession, carried in a palanquin decorated with flowers and silk, rode Lady Yukimura. Her white robes seemed to glow in the strange light created by rain and sunshine mixing, her form ethereal, barely real, as though she existed in multiple worlds simultaneously. The procession entered Fukuyamon's property to the sound of joyful exclamations and congratulations. The palanquin was set down gently, and Lady Yukimura emerged, moving with graceful dignity despite what Fukuyamon suspected were her own nerves. Their eyes met across the space between them, and he saw his own wonder and joy reflected back. The rain continued to fall through sunshine as the ceremonies began. Following traditions established over centuries, the couple was led into the house where a simple altar had been prepared, adorned with offerings to Inari, rice, sake, and symbols of prosperity. They knelt together before it, side by side for the first time as husband and wife, and drank sake from the same cup, the ceremonial joining that bound their lives together. With this sharing, the elder fox presiding over the ceremony intoned, "You become one family, one purpose, one path forward. May Inari bless your union with prosperity, health, and many children. May you walk together in harmony all the days of your lives." "We accept this blessing," they replied in unison, their voices blending. Lady Yukimura retired briefly to change from her traveling robes into the colorful uchikake, the elaborate outer kimono worn for the reception celebration. When she returned, the gathered guests erupted in applause and joyful barking, the fox expression of ultimate happiness. The celebration began in earnest then, even as the impossible rain continued to fall through brilliant sunshine. There was singing and dancing, stories told, and laughter shared. Food was abundant, rice dishes and sake, fish from mountain streams, vegetables from blessed gardens, sweets made with honey gathered by spirit bees. The guests celebrated not just the union of two foxes, but the joining of two families, the continuation of ancient lineages, the promise of new generations to come. Fukuyamon and Lady Yukimura, now simply Yukimura, his wife, his partner, sat together at the place of honor, accepting congratulations and well wishes, watching their families mingle and bond, feeling the rightness of this moment settle into their bones. The strangeness of the weather made everything feel enchanted, suspended in a moment outside ordinary time. "Are you happy?" Fukuyamon whispered to his wife during a lull in the festivities. Yes, she replied simply, her eyes shining. Very happy. So am I, he said. So very, very happy. As evening approached and the celebration continued into twilight, the rain finally began to ease, though the sun had long since set. The lanterns that had lit the bridal procession were rekindled, creating pools of soft light throughout the property. Guests gradually departed, leaving blessings and gifts, until finally only the immediate family remained. Fukuyemon's father approached the newlyweds, his eyes bright with emotion. "Welcome to our family, daughter," he said to Yukimura, bowing deeply. "You have brought honor and joy to our household. May you and my son find all the happiness my wife and I shared." "Thank you, father," Yukimura replied, using the term naturally, already embracing her new role. "I will strive to be worthy of the trust you have placed in me." When the last guests had gone and the household finally settled into quiet, Fukuyemon and Yukimura stood together at the threshold of their home, looking out at the night that had been blessed by impossible rain. The air still held that strange quality, that sense of magic lingering, of boundaries crossed and blessings granted. "Our wedding day brought Kitsune no Yomeiri," Yukimura said softly, "the phenomenon that gives the ceremony its name. We are truly blessed." "Blessed beyond measure," Fukuyemon agreed, taking her paw in his. "Come, wife, let us begin our life together." They stepped inside, closing the door on the magical day, stepping forward into their future. Behind them, a few last drops of rain fell through starlight, nature's final blessing on a union that had been celebrated by earth and sky, by spirit and fox, by all the invisible forces that recognize love when they see it and choose to honor it with wonders. The seasons turned, each bringing its own blessings to the household of Fukuyemon and Yukimura. They lived lovingly together, as the old stories promise, not in the effortless way of fairy tales, but in the genuine way of two individuals learning each other's rhythms, accommodating each other's habits, building something real and lasting through daily choice and commitment. Yukimura proved to be exactly what Fukuyemon had hoped for: intelligent, capable, warm. She took to managing the household with the same grace she brought to everything else, finding ways to honor both her family's traditions and those of her new home. She also showed an unexpected aptitude for the business side of things, offering insights that helped Fukuyemon expand his trading networks and identify new opportunities. "You have a gift for this," he told her one evening as they reviewed accounts together, a task that had become a pleasant shared ritual. "My father always said a good wife supports her husband's work however she can," Yukimura replied with a smile. "Besides, I find it interesting. There is strategy in trade, patterns to discover, relationships to nurture. It is not so different from the social diplomacy I was taught growing up." Their first winter together was long and snowy, the kind of season that tested the strength of any new marriage as couples learned to exist in close quarters through dark months. But Fukuyemon and Yukimura found joy even in the confinement. They told each other stories from their respective childhoods, shared their different family traditions, made plans for the spring. The house that had echoed with emptiness now rang with conversation and laughter. When spring finally arrived, melting the snow and coaxing green shoots from the earth, Yukimura had news that filled the household with joy. She was expecting cubs. Fukuyemon's father, who had remained vigorous and engaged despite his retirement, could barely contain his delight at the prospect of becoming a grandfather. "A new generation," he exclaimed. "The family continues, grows stronger. This is what life is for, not just accumulating wealth or status, but creating family. nurturing the future. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, with Yukimura maintaining her graceful bearing, even as her body changed to accommodate new life. The community of foxes rallied around them with advice and support, sharing traditional remedies and wisdom accumulated over generations. Fukuyemon fussed over his wife with tender concern, ensuring she wanted for nothing, that she rested when needed, that she felt cherished and protected. When the time came, late in the summer when the forests were lush and abundant, Yukimura delivered a litter of 4 cubs, 3 males and a female, all healthy, all bearing the distinctive white fur of their divine fox lineage. The grandfather's joy was beyond description. He held each tiny cub as gently as if they were butterflies or flowers, his weathered face transformed by wonder and love. "They are perfect," he whispered, tears glistening in his eyes. "Absolutely perfect. They have your mother's eyes, Fukuyemon, and Yukimura's elegant features. They are the very image of their old grandfather in his prime. They will never need a copper coin's worth of medicine. They are so healthy," he proclaimed to anyone who would listen, his pride knowing no bounds. The cubs were named in a ceremony at the household shrine: Katsuo, Daichi, Ren, and little Hanako, the only daughter. Each name had been carefully chosen to reflect hopes and blessings for that cub's future. The family and close friends gathered to witness the naming and to bring gifts and congratulations. Those first months with cubs in the household were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. The little ones demanded constant attention, feeding, cleaning, supervising as they took their first wobbly steps, preventing them from getting into mischief as their natural fox curiosity began to assert itself. The house that had been quiet was now filled with the sounds of infant barking, playful wrestling, and the constant low murmur of parental soothing. Fukuyemon discovered depths of patience he hadn't known he possessed. Yukimura seemed to take to motherhood with the same natural grace she brought to everything else, though he often found her sitting in the garden in the early morning, catching a few moments of peace before the household fully awakened. His father was a constant, doting presence, always ready to take a cub or two so the parents could rest, never tiring of playing with his grandchildren. "This," the grandfather would say, watching the cubs tumble over each other in play, "this is true wealth, not rice or sake or copper coins, but these little lives, this continuation of family. Every day with them is a blessing." As soon as the cubs were old enough, able to walk steadily and follow simple instructions, the family prepared for an important ceremony. Following tradition that stretched back to the earliest days of Fox Inari worship, the cubs would be taken to the local Inari shrine to be blessed and placed under divine protection. The journey to the shrine was a family affair, with Fukuyemon, Yukimura, and grandfather each carrying 1 cub, while little Hanako rode in a specially prepared basket. The path through the forest to the shrine wound between ancient cedar trees, through clearings where foxes had worshipped for centuries, past stone markers worn smooth by countless pilgrim paws. The shrine itself was beautiful in its simplicity: weathered wood buildings with curved roofs, sacred ropes marking the boundary between mundane and holy space, stone fox statues guarding the approach, their expressions serene and watchful. The air here felt different, charged with presence, with the accumulated power of generations of prayers and offerings. The priest, himself an elderly white fox of great dignity and spiritual authority, received the family with warm welcome. The cubs, sensing the importance of the moment, were on their best behavior, their usual rambunctious energy subdued by the sanctity of the place. "We bring our children to Inari-sama," Fukuyemon said, following the formal words of the blessing ritual. We ask protection from dogs and all other ills to which fox flesh is heir. We ask blessings on their lives, that they may grow strong and wise and good. Inari-sama, great spirit of the harvest, patron of foxes, keeper of thresholds, the priest intoned. These cubs are presented to you. They are of the white fox line, blessed already by their lineage, born to serve as your messengers in the world. Grant them your protection. Keep them safe from harm. Guide them in wisdom. Allow them to live long lives of purpose and joy. Each cub was brought forward individually to receive the blessing. A touch of sacred sack on the forehead, a small charm blessed and tucked into their collars, prayers spoken over their small heads. They squirmed and fidgeted, but endured the ceremony with admirable patience. When it was done, when all 4 cubs had been blessed and claimed as children of Inari, the family made offerings at the shrine: rice, sake, incense, and a generous donation to support the shrine's maintenance. The grandfather added his own prayers, so heartfelt that the priest paused to listen, moved by the depth of love and gratitude flowing from the old fox. "Thank you," grandfather whispered to forces seen and unseen. "Thank you for allowing me to see this day, to hold these grandchildren, to witness the continuation of our family. Let them be protected. Let them flourish. Let them know the happiness their parents have found." The walk home from the shrine felt lighter, somehow blessed, as though invisible protections now surrounded the cubs like guardian spirits. The little ones, exhausted by the journey and the ceremony, fell asleep in their parents' arms, tiny bundles of soft fur and gentle breathing. That night, after the cubs were settled and sleeping peacefully, Fukuyemon and Yukimura stood together looking at their children, overwhelmed by the love and responsibility they felt. "They are our future," Yukimura said softly. "They are our blessing," Fukuyemon replied. "They are both," grandfather added from the doorway, coming to join them in their vigil. "And they are themselves, individual souls who will grow and surprise us and eventually make their own paths in the world. Our job is simply to love them, guide them, and protect them as long as we can. You are good parents. They are fortunate to have you." Time, that great river, flowed onward, carrying the fox family through seasons and years. The cubs grew from helpless infants to curious toddlers to energetic youngsters, their personalities emerging distinct and strong. Katsuo, the eldest, showed his father's head for business and careful planning. Daiichi had his grandfather's warm heart and gift for making friends. Ren was quiet and thoughtful, often found observing the world with intense focus. And Hanako, the only daughter, demonstrated her mother's grace and a wit sharp enough to keep her brothers in line. Fukuyemon's business continued to prosper, expanding beyond his father's original trading networks into new territories and partnerships. His reputation for fairness and reliability spread throughout the fox communities, bringing opportunities and success. But he never forgot what truly mattered, always making time for family, for teaching his children, for quiet evenings with Yukimura, discussing the day and planning the future. Yukimura thrived in her role as wife, mother, and business partner. She managed the household with effortless competence, raised the cubs with a perfect balance of affection and discipline, and provided Fukuyemon with counsel and support in all his endeavors. The community respected her, valued her wisdom, sought her advice on matters both practical and personal. The grandfather, for that had become his primary identity now, superseding all previous roles, dedicated himself entirely to his grandchildren. He told them stories of the old days, taught them the traditional ways, played endless games with them, and loved them with a depth and purity that needed no words. "They keep me young," he would say with a laugh, even as his silver fur spoke of advancing age. More cubs came in subsequent years, 3 more in the next litter, then 2 after that. The household grew lively and loud, filled with the chaos and joy of many children. Fukuyemon and Yukimura sometimes looked at each other in exhausted bewilderment, wondering how their home had become so full, so noisy, so wonderfully overwhelming. "Do you remember when the house was quiet?" Fukuyemon asked one evening, stepping over 3 wrestling cubs to reach his wife. "Vaguely," Yukimura replied with a smile, rescuing a 4th cub who had climbed too high and gotten stuck. "I believe I occasionally found it boring." "I can't imagine that now," he said, and they both laughed. The children were taught in the traditional ways, all the practical skills they would need as adult foxes, but also the deeper lessons about honor, family, community, and service to Inari. They learned to shift shapes, a skill that required years of practice and concentration. They learned the business of trade and negotiation by watching their father work. They learned household management and social graces from their mother, and from their grandfather, they learned the stories, where they came from, who their ancestors were, what it meant to be white foxes of divine lineage. Each spring, the entire family made pilgrimage to the Inari shrine to renew their blessings and give thanks for another year of health and prosperity. The procession of them traveling through the forest became a familiar and beloved sight, parents leading the way, grandfather bringing up the rear, and a rowdy stream of cubs of varying ages between, their white fur gleaming in the dappled sunlight. The shrine priest, who aged as all living things must but retained his spiritual authority and gentle wisdom, always welcomed them warmly. "Fukuyemon's family grows more numerous each year," he would observe with satisfaction. "Inari is surely pleased. We are blessed beyond deserving," Fukuyemon would reply, bowing deeply. "No," the priest would correct gently. "You are blessed proportionate to your gratitude and devotion. Never forget to be thankful, and blessings will continue to flow." As the years passed, the cubs began to reach adolescence, that challenging time when young foxes started to test boundaries and assert independence. There were arguments and misunderstandings, slammed doors and dramatic proclamations, all the normal turbulence of youth. But through it all, the foundation of love and respect held firm. Katsuo, now approaching adulthood, began working seriously in the family business, learning the intricacies from his father with dedicated focus. "One day this will be yours," Fukuyemon told him. "Learn it well, honor it, and pass it on to your own children when the time comes." "I will, father," Katsuo promised, and Fukuyemon saw in his eldest son's eyes the same determination he himself had felt when his own father passed the business to him. The cycle continued, generation flowing into generation, like water finding its eternal path. Hanako, the eldest daughter, showed no interest in traditional roles, instead demonstrating a gift for diplomacy and negotiation that surprised everyone. She could be an intermediary, Yukimura observed to her husband, watching their daughter skillfully mediate a dispute between 2 of her brothers. "She has the temperament for it, patient, perceptive, able to see all sides." "A female intermediary?" Fukuyemon said thoughtfully. "It is uncommon, but not unheard of. If that is her path, we will support it." The grandfather, now quite elderly, silver fur completely white, movement slower but spirit undimmed, continued his devoted relationship with all his grandchildren. The oldest cubs, now young adults, treated him with tender respect and affection. The younger ones still climbed on him without regard for his age, and he endured their roughhousing with patience and delight. "I will not live to see all of them grown," he said to Fukuyemon one quiet evening, speaking the truth they both knew but rarely acknowledged. "No, father, you will live many more years," Fukuyemon replied, the automatic protest of a son not ready to lose his parent. "Perhaps," the old fox allowed with a gentle smile, "but if not, if my time comes sooner, know that I have lived a full and happy life. I saw you grow strong and wise. I saw you find a wonderful wife. I held grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I experienced joy beyond measure. No fox could ask for more." "Do not speak of leaving us," Fukuyemon said, voice thick with emotion. "I speak of gratitude," his father corrected. "Every day is a gift. Every moment with this family is precious. I want you to remember that, to feel that, to never take these blessings for granted." Fukuyemon embraced his father, feeling how frail the old fox had become, how light in his arms. "I love you, father," he said simply. "And I you, my son," came the reply. "And I you." The seasons continued their turning. Cubs grew and changed. The business prospered. The household thrived. And through it all, Fukuyemon and Yukimura walked together, partners in every sense, building something that would outlast them both. A family, a legacy, a love that had started with an impossible rain on a summer day and grown stronger with each passing year. Every spring brought fresh cause for joy. Every autumn brought abundant harvests, proof of Inari's continued blessings upon the family. The cycle of seasons became a rhythm the family moved within, each turn of the year marking growth, change, and the deepening of bonds. Fukuyemon grew prosperous beyond even his grandfather's hopes. The business expanded to include multiple trading routes, partnerships with distinguished merchant families, and a reputation that opened doors throughout the fox communities. But wealth, he had learned, was meaningless without family to share it with, without love to give it purpose. "You have built something remarkable," Yukimura told him one evening as they walked through their expanded property, watching their numerous children play in the gardens. "Not just a business, but a legacy. Not just wealth, but happiness." "We built it together," he corrected gently. "Everything I am, everything we have, exists because of partnership. Yours, father's, our children's. A fox alone is just clever. A fox with family is blessed." The grandfather's health, as all living things must eventually decline, began to fail. He grew frail, his movements slow, his once bright eyes dimming with age. But his spirit remained strong, his love for his family undiminished. He still gathered the grandchildren and great-grandchildren around him to tell stories, though now they came to him rather than chasing him through the gardens. "Tell us about your wedding," the youngest cubs would beg. "Tell us about the rain that fell from blue sky." And he would smile, remembering that distant day when Fukuyemon had married, when the impossible rain had fallen to mark their union as blessed. "It was magic made visible," he would say softly. "The boundary between worlds growing so thin that wonder spilled through. Your grandparents' love was so strong that even the spirits celebrated. And look what came from that day. All of you. Every single one of you is proof that blessings multiply when tended with love." When the grandfather finally passed, peacefully in his sleep surrounded by family, the grief was profound, but not bitter. He had lived fully, loved completely, and left behind a legacy of joy that would echo through generations. They buried him with full honors, and at his funeral, a strange thing happened. a brief sun shower, rain falling through morning sunshine, as if the foxes of the spirit world were welcoming one of their own home with a wedding procession reversed, a celebration of a life well lived. Even in death, he brings us wonder, Fukuyemon said, tears mixing with the impossible rain on his face. The family continued, as families do. The eldest cubs reached adulthood and began their own courtships, their own journeys toward partnership and family. Fukuyemon and Yukimura became grandparents themselves, experiencing the joy their own grandfather had known, understanding now the depth of his devotion to their children. "Now I understand," Fukuyemon said, holding his first grandchild with the same tender care his father had shown. Why grandfather treated them like butterflies and flowers. They are so precious, so perfect, so miraculous, and so fragile, Yukimura added, watching her son's family with knowing eyes, which makes every moment with them a gift. The business passed to Katsuo when Fukuyemon decided to retire, mirroring the cycle that had brought him the business decades before. His son was ready, capable, and eager to carry the legacy forward. Fukuyemon stepped back with confidence, knowing the family's prosperity would continue, knowing his life's work was secure in capable paws. In his retirement, Fukuyemon took on his father's role, beloved grandfather, storyteller, keeper of family history. He and Yukimura, their fur now silver-touched like his father's had been, watched their family continue to grow and flourish. They made pilgrimages to the Inari shrine together, offering prayers of gratitude for long lives, enduring love, and the blessing of witnessing their legacy extend beyond themselves. "We have been fortunate," Yukimura said one spring day, as they watched great-grandchildren play in the garden where their own cubs had once tumbled. "We have been blessed," Fukuyemon agreed, "by Inari, by family, by love, by every impossible rain that falls from clear sky to remind us that magic exists." They grew old together, as they had always planned, as they had promised on that day when rain fell through sunshine to mark their union. And when their time finally came, many years later, they passed within days of each other, neither willing to exist long in a world without their partner. Their funeral was attended by what seemed like every fox in the region. Their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren, plus all the families they had touched through business and friendship and simple kindness over their long, blessed lives. And during the funeral ceremony, as their family said farewell, the sky performed its miracle once more, rain falling from cloudless blue, sunshine and drops dancing together, the phenomenon that had marked their beginning, now honoring their end. Kitsune no Yomeiri, the fox's wedding, acknowledging that love never truly ends, that it transforms and continues, that somewhere in the spirit realm, two white foxes were walking together still, their devotion eternal as the cycle of seasons, as permanent as the impossible rain. Chapter 7. The Eternal Procession. The phenomenon continues. Every generation experiences it anew. A child stands in a garden, feeling rain fall while sunshine warms their face, and asks the ancient question, "Why does the rain fall when there are no clouds?" And someone, grandmother, grandfather, parent, elder, smiles with knowing and replies, "The foxes are marrying today. Kitsune no Yomeiri. They make the rain to celebrate their joy, to hide their ceremony from mortal eyes, to mark the boundary between their world and ours." The tradition stretches back beyond memory, beyond written record, to a time when humans and spirits lived in closer proximity, when the boundaries between worlds were more permeable. when magic was simply another aspect of existence, rather than something separate and doubted. Fox weddings have been celebrated as long as foxes have existed, as long as rain has fallen, as long as the sun has shone. In villages throughout Japan, from the southern islands of Kyushu to the northern reaches of Honshu, the phrase remains embedded in culture and language. When rain falls from clear sky, children still recite the old song. When rain falls in good weather, it's the fox's wedding. The words change slightly from region to region, but the meaning remains constant. Something magical is happening, something that defies ordinary explanation, something that requires us to remember that reality is more mysterious and wonderful than we often acknowledge. The foxfire processions continue too. In mountains and forests, in places where the modern world has not entirely banished the ancient, lights still appear on moonless nights. Dozens of them, sometimes hundreds, bobbing and weaving in formation, following paths that no human road could trace. Those brave enough or foolish enough to follow find that the lights vanish upon approach, dissolving like mist, like dreams, like all things that exist in that liminal space between imagination and reality. But evidence remains. In the morning, paths that wind toward Inari shrines are found scattered with signs of passage. Fox tracks, scattered petals, the lingering scent of incense and celebration. At Shunjitsu Shrine in Saitama, after nights when foxfire has danced across the mountain, the road is covered with fox droppings, prosaic proof of supernatural passage. The spirits leave their mark, their reminder that they are still here, still celebrating, still conducting their ancient ceremonies while humans sleep. Mount Kirin in Niigata Prefecture remains famous for fox sightings and foxfire. The mountain is full of foxes, mundane and magical, physical and spiritual. And the phenomenon of Kitsune no Yomeiri appears with enough regularity that the entire region has embraced it. Festivals celebrate the fox weddings, with humans dressing as foxes, carrying lanterns in processions that mirror the supernatural ceremonies they honor. The Tsugawa region hosts an annual fox wedding festival, drawing tens of thousands of visitors who come to witness the reenactment of the mystical processions. Participants don fox masks and traditional wedding attire, carrying paper lanterns through the streets as night falls, creating a river of light that echoes the foxfire their ancestors witnessed on this same mountain. The festival is both remembrance and continuation, honoring the past while keeping the tradition alive for future generations. In Mie Prefecture, Suzaki Hamamiya Shiname Shrine holds its own variation during Setsubun, the seasonal boundary between winter and spring. A couple in their yakudoshi, unlucky years when misfortune is most likely to strike, dress as foxes and reenact a wedding ceremony, using the disguise to trick malevolent spirits into not recognizing them, allowing them to pass through dangerous time safely while borrowing the fox's blessing. The ritual dates to the Edo period and continues today, drawing massive crowds who come to witness the blending of human need and fox magic. Kyoto hosts its own fox wedding parade each April, when spring is fully established and the world feels renewed. In Yamaguchi Prefecture, ancient festivals honor white fox deities, whose own wedding is reenacted annually, asking blessings for harvest and prosperity. From north to south, across the entire breadth of the Japanese islands, except for Hokkaido, where foxes but not fox wedding traditions exist, the phenomenon is remembered, celebrated, woven into the fabric of culture. But the phenomenon is not merely cultural or festive. It continues to happen spontaneously, unexpectedly, reminding people that magic persists beyond human control or scheduling. A woman walks to market when suddenly rain begins falling from cloudless sky, and she stops, breathless, remembering the old stories, wondering what ceremony she might be accidentally witnessing. A farmer working his fields sees lights bobbing across distant mountains where no roads exist, and knows with certainty beyond logic that somewhere nearby, foxes are celebrating love and family and the eternal cycles that bind all living things. In Tokushima, they call it Kitsune, fox rain, not connecting it specifically to weddings, but acknowledging the association with foxes, with the supernatural, with forces beyond human comprehension. In Kumamoto, rainbows signal the fox ceremonies, arcs of color spanning sky like bridges between worlds. In Aichi, it is graupel, soft hail falling during sunshine, that marks the fox's celebration, frozen rain that shouldn't exist but does, because magic has its own logic. The regional variations speak to the universality of the underlying truth, that there are moments when the ordinary world reveals its extraordinary foundation, when the veil between physical and spiritual grows thin, when what should be impossible manifests anyway, because reality is more flexible, more mysterious, more wonderful than our daily experience suggests. Children are still warned to stay indoors during sun showers, though the reasons given have softened over generations. Once, parents feared that their children might stumble into fox magic, might become bewitched or confused or trapped between worlds. Now, the warnings are gentler. Let the foxes have their privacy. Respect the boundaries of their ceremony. Honor the magic by not intruding upon it. The fear has transformed into reverence, recognition that some things are meant to remain mysterious, that not everything requires human witness or understanding. For those who must see, who feel compelled to witness the impossible, old rituals persist. In Fukushima Prefecture, an elaborate method exists. Wear a surebachi mortar on your head, stick a wooden pestle in your belt, stand beneath a date tree on the 10th day of the 10th month of the lunar calendar, and the fox wedding will appear before you. The specificity of the ritual, its precise requirements, its scheduled timing, suggests less a guaranteed method and more a test of devotion, a way of ensuring that only the truly committed, the genuinely reverent, attempt to cross the boundary. Aichi offers an easier path. Spit in a well, weave your fingers together, peer through the gaps, and you might glimpse the procession. The method is simpler, but carries its own poetry, using spaces between gaps and absences to see what normally remains hidden. Magic, the ritual suggests, exists in the liminal spaces, the thresholds, the places where one thing becomes another. But most people don't seek the fox weddings through ritual or formula. Most experience them accidentally, unexpectedly, in moments of wonder that cannot be planned or controlled. They are gifts, these glimpses, given when the spirits choose, revealed when the timing is right, manifested when someone is ready to witness magic and hold it gently, with respect and awe, rather than analysis or exploitation. The phenomenon is considered auspicious, blessed, fortunate. To witness a sun shower is to know that good things are coming, rain for crops, children for newlyweds, prosperity for businesses, safety for journeys. The more foxfire lanterns visible in a procession, the more abundant the autumn harvest will be. Conversely, years without fox weddings bring dread, predictions of famine, the absence of spiritual blessing manifesting as material lack. This connection between fox ceremonies and human prosperity speaks to the deep relationship between the two species in Japanese cosmology. Foxes are messengers of Inari, the kami of rice, harvest, prosperity, and success. What benefits the foxes benefits humanity, and vice versa. Their weddings are not separate from human concerns, but deeply intertwined with them. When foxes celebrate, the spiritual forces that govern abundance are pleased, active, generous. White foxes especially carry this blessing. Unlike their red cousins who might trick or confuse humans for amusement or malice, white foxes are considered divine, benevolent, actively helpful to humans who treat them with respect. They are Inari's direct servants, embodiments of the kami's grace, bridges between the divine and mundane. When white foxes marry, when they establish families and create new generations, the spiritual ecosystem that supports human life is strengthened, renewed, blessed. The story of Fukuyama and his bride, recorded in A.B. Mitford's Tales of Old Japan and preserved in Japanese folk tradition, represents the ideal, a fox wedding conducted with all proper ceremony, producing a loving partnership, generating numerous offspring who themselves grow and thrive and continue the cycle. It is a story of joy untroubled by tragedy, of family life as it should be, of love that accomplishes what love is meant to accomplish. Connection, continuation, the transformation of two individuals into something larger than themselves. But the story is also universal. While told about foxes, it speaks to human hopes and dreams, the desire for partnership, the longing for children, the wish to build something lasting, the hope that love will be enough, that family will bring happiness, that the cycles we participate in will continue beyond our individual lives. The foxes become mirrors, allowing humans to see their own values reflected back through the lens of folklore and magic. Every wedding, human or fox, is an act of faith, belief that two can become one without either losing themselves, hope that love will sustain through difficulty and change, trust that the future will honor the promises made in the present. When rain falls from clear sky during a human wedding, it is considered especially auspicious, a sign that the foxes approve, that the spiritual forces recognize and bless this particular union. Brides married during sun showers are promised many children, long life, enduring happiness, the same blessings the foxes themselves celebrate. The phenomenon thus becomes a bridge, a shared language between human and spirit, mundane and magical. When we witness impossible rain, we are reminded that we do not exist in isolation, that our joys echo through dimensions we cannot see, that love itself is the force that binds all worlds together. The foxes marry, and we are invited to rejoice with them, to recognize our common hopes, to celebrate the eternal mysteries that unite all beings who choose partnership over solitude, family over isolation. There is something profound in the contradiction of sun and rain existing simultaneously. It defies what we think we know about weather, about cause and effect, about the rules that govern physical reality. Rain comes from clouds. No clouds means no rain. This is logic. This is science. This is the ordered understanding we use to navigate the world. But then rain falls anyway, and the sky remains blue, and sunshine warms your face while drops cool your hands, and you are forced to confront the fact that reality is more flexible than your categories suggest. The impossible happens, not as violation of natural law, but as expansion of it, a reminder that there is more than we know, more than we can explain, more than our confident pronouncements about what can and cannot be. The Japanese language captures this beautifully. Rather than treating sun showers as meteorological anomalies requiring scientific explanation, the tradition names them Kitsune no Yomeiri, the fox's wedding, and in doing so, transforms confusion into meaning, disorder into story, the inexplicable into the magical. the same phenomenon that might elsewhere be dismissed or puzzled over becomes, in Japanese tradition, evidence of spiritual celebration, proof that other worlds exist alongside ours, invitation to wonder rather than merely question. This naming, this story-making, is not primitive or superstitious. It is deeply sophisticated. It acknowledges that not everything requires mechanical explanation, that some experiences are better understood through metaphor and meaning than through reduction and analysis. When rain falls from clear sky, something extraordinary is happening. To call it a fox's wedding is to honor the extraordinary nature of the moment, to resist the impulse to normalize or dismiss it, to insist that wonder is an appropriate response to wonder. The trickster aspect of Kitsune adds another layer. Foxes in Japanese tradition are shapeshifters, illusionists, beings who delight in confusing human perception and challenging human certainty. They make you see what isn't there or fail to see what is. They blur boundaries, cross thresholds, exist in multiple states simultaneously. They are, fundamentally, creatures of ambiguity and transformation. A sun shower embodies these qualities perfectly. It is weather that shouldn't exist but does. It makes you question your perception. Am I really seeing this? Is this actually happening? It creates cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding two contradictory truths simultaneously. The sun shines. This is true. Rain falls. This is also true. Both cannot be true simultaneously according to normal weather patterns, yet both are demonstrably, undeniably true. The tradition suggests that foxes create this confusion deliberately, as protection for their ceremonies. They make rain to hide their weddings from human eyes, ensuring privacy for their sacred rituals. But the rain betrays them even as it conceals them. Its very impossibility announces that something magical is happening. The foxes are tricksters even in their protective measures, creating a veil that simultaneously reveals. This speaks to a deeper truth about magic and mystery. They cannot truly be hidden, only transformed. The sacred ceremonies of the foxes occur beyond human perception, in realms and dimensions we cannot directly access. But their effects spill into our world as sun showers and foxfire, as traces and evidence, as moments when the ordinary becomes extraordinary and we are reminded that more exists than what our senses normally detect. The sun shower becomes a kind of proof, not scientific proof, but experiential evidence that the material world we inhabit is not the only reality, not the complete picture, not the final word on what exists. When impossible rain falls, we are being given a gift, the gift of knowing, even if just for a moment, that magic is real, that spirits celebrate, that the world is wider and stranger and more wonderful than our daily routines suggest. Children understand this instinctively. When told that the rain means foxes are marrying, they accept it without skepticism, without demanding proof or explanation. Their imagination hasn't yet been trained out of them. Their capacity for wonder hasn't been diminished by demands for rational explanation. They stand in the impossible rain and feel joy, excitement, the thrill of being present for something magical. They know, with the wisdom that children sometimes possess more fully than adults, that some truths are felt rather than proven, experienced rather than explained. As we age, many of us lose this capacity. We learn to dismiss the inexplicable, to trust only what can be measured and verified, to treat wonder as childish rather than profound. The sun shower becomes merely a meteorological curiosity, explained away by temperature inversions and localized precipitation patterns. We congratulate ourselves on our sophistication, our refusal to be fooled by superstition. But what have we gained, and what have we lost? The scientific explanation tells us how the rain might form despite clear sky, but it doesn't tell us what the experience means, how it should make us feel, what it reveals about the nature of reality beyond physical mechanisms. The folklore gives us that meaning. It tells us that joy is being celebrated, that love is being honored, that boundaries between worlds are momentarily permeable, that we are witnessing something sacred even if we cannot fully understand it. The tradition of Kitsune no Yomeiri insists that meaning matters, that story matters, that how we frame our experiences shapes what those experiences can teach us. To see a sun shower as a fox wedding is to maintain connection with the mythic dimension of existence, to resist the flattening of reality into pure mechanism, to preserve space for magic and mystery in an increasingly disenchanted world. The foxfire processions carry similar weight, mysterious lights appearing in darkness, moving with purpose and formation, suggesting intelligence and intention behind their movement. Science offers explanations: bioluminescence, marsh gas, ball lightning, various atmospheric phenomena that can create glowing orbs. And perhaps these explanations are accurate for some sightings. But the tradition insists on something more, that these lights are lanterns carried by fox spirits in wedding procession, that they mirror human ceremonies, that they represent celebration and community and love made visible. The lights become more than physical phenomena. They become evidence of an entire society existing alongside humanity, conducting their own rituals, building their own families, living lives parallel to ours, but mostly hidden. To follow the lights and find they disappear upon approach is not proof of delusion, but confirmation of the essential mystery. The spirits allow themselves to be glimpsed but not captured, witnessed but not fully known. They maintain their autonomy, their separate existence, their right to privacy and sacred space. The fact that they sometimes leave evidence, tracks, droppings, lingering scents, suggests that the boundary between worlds is real but permeable, that interaction is possible, but must be approached with respect rather than intrusion. The tradition thus teaches appropriate relationship with mystery. We are not meant to solve every puzzle, explain every wonder, reduce every extraordinary experience to ordinary mechanisms. Some things are meant to remain mysterious, to continue provoking awe and curiosity, to resist our attempts at mastery and control. The foxes marry, the lights appear, the rain falls from clear sky, and our proper response is not to dissect, but to appreciate, not to explain, but to marvel, not to possess, but to witness with gratitude and humility. This is wisdom the modern world desperately needs. We have become expert at explanation, at analysis, at breaking complex phenomena into component parts and examining them in isolation. But we have forgotten how to simply stand in wonder, how to let mystery be mystery, how to find meaning in the inexplicable rather than discomfort. The tradition of Kitsune no Yomeiri offers an alternative, a way of being in the world that makes space for magic, that treats the extraordinary as gift rather than problem, that finds joy in the impossible rather than anxiety. When rain falls from clear sky, we could catalog atmospheric conditions and precipitation mechanisms, or we could smile, whisper, "The foxes are marrying," and allow ourselves to feel connected to something larger, older, more wonderful than our individual understanding. Both responses are available. One flattens reality into pure mechanics. The other enriches it with meaning, story, connection to tradition and community, and the accumulated wisdom of countless generations who looked at the same phenomenon and recognized it as sacred. The choice reveals what we value: certainty or wonder, explanation or meaning, control or relationship. The foxes will marry regardless of what we believe about them. The question is whether we will allow ourselves to celebrate with them, to recognize in their impossible reign a reminder that reality is more mysterious and more beautiful than our daily experience suggests, that love is worth celebrating, whether conducted by humans or spirits, that family and partnership and the creation of new life are sacred acts that deserve recognition and joy. The sun rises, the sun sets, the seasons turn, and through it all, the phenomenon continues. Somewhere, right now, rain might be falling from cloudless sky. Somewhere, as darkness falls, mysterious lights might be forming a procession across a mountain no human road traverses. The foxes marry, have always married, will always marry, because love is eternal, and family is the force that binds all worlds together. You might witness it tomorrow, or next week, or years from now. You might be walking through your ordinary day when suddenly the impossible happens. Rain falling while the sun blazes bright, drops catching light and scattering it in prismatic beauty. You will stop, confused for a moment, your rational mind trying to reconcile the contradiction. And then you will remember, or perhaps you will hear for the first time, the old explanation. The foxes are marrying. And in that moment, you will have a choice. You can dismiss it as mere weather, as meaningless coincidence of atmospheric conditions. Or you can accept the gift being offered, the invitation to witness magic, to acknowledge mystery, to participate in a tradition that stretches back beyond memory, to connect with countless others who have stood beneath impossible rain and felt wonder rather than mere confusion. If you choose wonder, if you let yourself believe even for a moment that somewhere nearby, fox spirits are celebrating love and family with ancient ceremony, something shifts inside you. The world becomes larger, more spacious, more enchanted. You remember that you are not alone, not the only form of consciousness, not the measure of all things. You become humble in the best way, aware of how much exists beyond your perception, how much remains mysterious, how much magic persists in a world that often feels entirely mapped and explained. The rain will stop eventually. The sun will continue on its course. Your daily routine will resume. But you will carry something with you, a memory of impossibility, a reminder of mystery, a moment when the ordinary world revealed its extraordinary foundation. And that memory, if you tend it, if you honor it, if you allow it to matter, can change how you move through the world. You might find yourself looking more carefully at twilight, watching for strange lights that shouldn't exist. You might pause during sun showers instead of hurrying through them, taking a moment to feel the contradiction, to appreciate the wonder. You might tell others about the phenomenon, passing on the tradition, ensuring that the next generation knows to look for fox weddings in the impossible rain. This is how traditions survive, through ordinary people choosing to remember, to honor, to pass forward the stories and meanings that transform mere experience into significance. Every person who tells a child, "The foxes are marrying today," is maintaining an ancient wisdom, preserving a way of being in the world that refuses to flatten mystery into mechanism. Every person who smiles at a sun shower instead of ignoring it is participating in something larger than themselves, connecting with the accumulated wonder of countless generations. The festivals help too. The annual celebrations where humans dress as foxes and carry lanterns in procession, reenacting the ceremonies they cannot directly witness. These are not mere tourist attractions or quaint customs. They are acts of devotion, expressions of reverence, ways of saying to the spirits, "We remember you, we honor you, we celebrate alongside you, even if we cannot see you directly." The participants in these festivals become temporary bridges between worlds, wearing fox masks, carrying lanterns, moving in procession through darkness. They embody the very ceremonies they commemorate. For a few hours, the boundary blurs. Are they humans pretending to be foxes, or are they allowing fox spirits to manifest through them? The question doesn't require an answer. The ambiguity itself is sacred. The blurring itself is the point. Children watching these processions, seeing the lanterns bob and sway, hearing the music and celebration, are learning without being taught, absorbing the tradition through experience rather than instruction. They will remember the lights, the costumes, the joy of the celebration. And years later, when they see rain falling from clear sky, they will make the connection. They will remember the foxes. They will feel the wonder that their own children and grandchildren will eventually inherit. This is how wisdom transfers, not through lectures or explanations, but through participation in meaningful ritual, through witnessing beauty and celebration, through being part of something larger than individual comprehension. The child doesn't need to understand the meteorology of sun showers or the psychology of belief. They simply need to experience the magic, to feel the wonder, to carry forward the knowledge that foxes marry and deserve celebration. As you drift toward sleep now, imagine for a moment that you are standing in a forest clearing at twilight. The air is warm, touched with the scent of wildflowers and earth. Above you, the sky is that particular shade of blue that appears just before darkness fully claims the world. And then you notice it, a single light appearing on the mountain path ahead, where no path should exist. Another light joins the first, then another. Soon there are dozens of them, forming a line that stretches across the darkening landscape, moving with purpose and grace. You hear music, faint but unmistakable, flutes and drums playing melodies that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere. The procession winds closer, and you realize you are witnessing something rare and sacred, a fox wedding in full celebration. You don't try to approach, you don't try to follow. You simply watch, breathless with wonder, as the lights pass by, carrying their invisible bride to her new home, marking another union, blessed by spirits and sky. The music fades, the lights disappear into the forest, but you remain changed by what you've witnessed, touched by magic, connected to the eternal cycles of love and family that unite all beings across all worlds. And as you finally fall asleep, you carry with you the image of those lights, bobbing gently through darkness like hope itself, like love itself, like the persistent beauty that exists in the world if only we remember to look for it. Somewhere, foxes are still marrying. Somewhere, rain is still falling from clear sky. Somewhere, the impossible is still happening, reminding us that reality is more flexible, more mysterious, more wonderful than we ever quite remember. The blessing continues, the tradition survives, the magic persists, and we, if we choose, can participate in it, not by explaining or analyzing or reducing, but simply by witnessing, by wondering, by allowing ourselves to celebrate alongside spirits we cannot see but can certainly honor. Sleep now. Dream of impossible rain. Dream of lanterns floating through darkness. Dream of love celebrated across dimensions, of family bonds that transcend species and worlds, of the eternal cycles that turn and turn and turn, bringing each generation its own chance to witness wonder, to experience magic, to stand beneath falling rain and brilliant sunshine and know, truly know, that the world is far stranger and more beautiful than ordinary days suggest. The foxes marry. They have always married. They will always marry. And the sky itself celebrates, sending rain through sunshine, creating the impossible contradiction that announces something sacred is happening, something worthy of joy, something that deserves your attention and your wonder and your gentle participation in the great mystery of existence. Rest now in that knowledge. Let it comfort you. Let it lull you into deep, peaceful sleep, knowing that magic exists, that love is eternal, that beauty persists, and that you, yes, you, are part of this great story, this endless celebration, this rain that falls forever from an endless summer sky. The foxes are marrying. Can you hear their music? Can you see their lights? They dance just beyond the edges of sleep, waiting to guide you into dreams where everything impossible becomes real, where rain and sunshine exist together in perfect harmony, where love transcends all boundaries, and where the only response to mystery is wonder, gratitude, and joy. Sleep deeply. The foxes will keep watch. Their lanterns will light your dreams, and when you wake, perhaps you too will look for impossible rain, for mysterious lights, for evidence that magic persists in this world that needs wonder now more than ever. The procession continues. The rain falls. The celebration never ends, and you are blessed to witness it, blessed to know it, blessed to carry it forward into whatever comes next. Good night. Sleep well, and may all your dreams be lit by foxfire, warmed by impossible sunshine, blessed by gentle rain, and filled with the joy of witnessing magic that was always there, waiting for you to notice, to wonder, to celebrate alongside spirits both ancient and eternal.